So hi everybody, and welcome to the International Relations course. Today we have a question made with two participants. The question is the following. How realism helps us to understand the globalization of world politics? So before we move on to answer this question, let's define the key terms of realism and globalization. Realism is a theory which focuses on abiding patterns of interaction in an international system lacking a centralized political authority. And globalization is the process in which regional economics, societies, and cultures have become integrated through a global network of political ideas through communication, transportation, and trade.
That is right, Catalina, but in order to understand better the concept of realism, we will go in a brief tour through time, analyzing the main authors of this movement. Let's begin with Thucydides, who analyzed the Peloponnesian War.
The big idea that Thucydides wants to give through history of the Peloponnesian War is that international politics is driven by an endless struggles for power, which has its roots in human nature, where use, love, and society either have no place or are circumscribed.
That's right. And talking about human nature, what about Machiavelli, whose political point of view was based on men being ungrateful and vulnerable?
To succeed in politics, one has to act on the basis of what human nature is and not how one wants it to be. According to him, the needs of politics, such as ensuring an survival of the state by enemies, were derived from human nature is cynical and pessimist in some of his writings. Political realism declares that principles are subject to policies. The ultimate ability of a state leader is to accept and adapt to the changing political and power configuration in world politics.
Another author who talked about the human condition of selfishness was Hobbes. Let's see a little bit more about him.
The English philosopher Thomas Hobbes, arguably one of the most important, if not the most important, founder of modern political philosophy, in his book The Leviathan or Matter, Form and Power of Commonwealth Ecclesiastical and Civil, commonly known as the Leviathan, published in 1651, it explains the similarities between the behavior of individual as human and the behavior of individual as states. It explains how individuals how the life of individual is full of fear, violence, worries, and death, and how they are in equal conditions, but this behavior leads to lust of power. They act based on searching for more and more power, and even though in the end they look for coexistence among them or peace among them, the lust for power is always present, and this is the base of the behavior.
But now let's talk about the real agents on international relations, which leads to conflict. The state follows the human logic of selfishness, and even though it embodies the general will of its members, each state has its own point of view.
The last theory can be found in the text The State of War by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and it says, "It is not human nature but the anarchical system that fosters fear, jealousy, suspicion, and insecurity." Taking that into account, Rousseau explains in the text that the usages of war justify as methods of injuring the enemy. He refers to another power as the enemy, and the intention is to destroy its state, or at least try to weaken it by all means at their disposal. He affirms that the state of war is the natural relation between two powers, and in order to be legitimate, war requires to be declared. So, because the anarchical system fosters insecurity, the nature of two powers is to try to weaken or destroy the state of the other one.
To conclude, we can see that most of the authors talked about human nature and described it as a constant search of power, honor, and profit, based on fear, self-interest, and the seek of survival. This is replicated by the international agents, which are states, and which are in constant conflict of power and security.
In this way, realism can help us to understand globalization as a period of commercial and ideological war, repeating the historical pattern of wars interrupted by periods of preparation for future wars, and not only as a time of integration and global interconnectedness. We can witness the pattern in economical and ideological conflicts. Some examples can be the economical war between great powers such as Russia, China, and the United States, or some ideological ones such as the changes in regimes in the Middle East or divisions in regions like Europe with the Brexit and the UK.
Okay, first of all, this question is of interest to international business students because it helps us to understand international politics in a better way, and it clarifies in a certain way how the world works right now, how politics works in each country, helping us to see how each market works internationally today. Second one, we found this activity fun and quite dynamic since it is a job that helps us to understand the environment for which we are studying for, and it's not a monotonous activity, so it helps us to work as a team. It's not a bored activity, so we feel so motivated to work about that and try to give the best part of us. So it teaches us to work together and be more responsible with our work. This activity could be more fun if only we could have been presential in the campus with our teacher, with our classmates. And even that this activity was virtual, it was fun activity that we enjoyed to work, and it taught us as many things.